Hello and welcome to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV. I'm Andy Richards. Your top stories on Wednesday, the 29th of November. Claims of new evidence in historic Kent murder case. Michael Stone's lawyers say he could have been falsely imprisoned for 2 decades.
Every day I wake up, the first thing I think about is him waking up in the morning, that he's in prison, he's in a cell, and I'm walking around.
The backbone of the economy. Labour Shadow Minister visits Medway's small businesses.
I want to support small firms across the country and, particularly in this area where I grew up.
Sinking statistics. We're in West Kent, where a new study shows 1 in 3 leave primary schools unable to swim.
All children should currently, and for the last 20 years, have had the opportunity to be able to attend swimming classes through schools.
And in sport, find out how Kent Cricket Club begin the 2018 season as I take a look at their fixtures.
Now, a man who's serving life sentences for the murder of a Kent mother and daughter could be innocent. Michael Stone's lawyers say more than 20 years after Lynn and Megan Russell were killed in Chillenden, another man's confessed to the murders. They claim serial killer Levi Belfield committed the murders. Harry Pete was in London for a press conference earlier this afternoon.
Gillingham's Michael Stone has been in prison for more than 20 years after being found guilty of murdering Lynn and Megan Russell in 1996. But today, here in London, his legal team say they have found evidence which they say proves his innocence.
We have now received evidence of a full confession by Levi Belfield. He has admitted the Russell murders. In the confession, Belfield describes how he came across Lynn Russell and her 2 children, how he attacked them with a hammer, and he explains his motivation for the killing.
Whilst details of the evidence weren't revealed, barrister Mark MacDonald was certain that the new evidence would show that Levi Belfield was the killer.
What we have here is a confession which has material in it which is not in the public domain. And more importantly, is corroborated by other evidence. The independent witness, as we've said, and in relation to the forensic material which corroborates what is said by Levi Belfield.
Michael's sister Barbara has always pleaded his innocence since he was sentenced and says that she has suffered now for too long.
Every day I wake up, the first thing I think about is him waking up in the morning, that he's in prison, he's in a cell, and I'm walking around. So for both of us, we're doing some kind of a sentence. Obviously for him, he's confined within the prison. But for me, it's more of a mental confinement, and it's something that never goes away, and it affects everything I do in life, really.
Kent police have said that there is no evidence to ever suggest that Belfield was involved, and Belfield himself has denied any of the allegations. The case is now under review by the Criminal Case Review Commission. Harry Pete for KMTV in London.
So Harry with an update there. And Louisa, you've joined us to tell us about a statement that we've received.
That's right, we've received a statement from Assistant Chief Constable for the Kent and Essex Serious Crime Directorate. And Nick Downing says that the statement reads, we feel it's no longer contemporaneous and is unfair on the victims to continue to raise questions or release details about the murder investigation and subsequent conviction of Michael Stone. They're really re-emphasising the fact that he was found guilty. So they say following the 2 trials of which Stone was found guilty by a jury on both occasions and an appeal to the High Court, Michael Stone remains convicted of the murders of Lynn and Megan Russell and the attempted murder, of course, of Josie Russell in 1996. And they also say that the Criminal Case Review Commission re-examined the murder investigation and had access to all forensic evidence, documentation and exhibits from the original investigation. The review by another force details of 2 Crown Court trials and appeals to the High Court as well.
Louisa, thank you very much indeed. And we'll have more news on that story on our website, kmtv.co.uk. Now, big changes are coming to the South East Railways. An announcement made today by the government details what's happening to our train services over the next few years. Our reporter, Poppy Jeffrey, has more.
It sounds like good news if you commute to work, because an extra 40,000 passengers will be able to travel on trains in the South East by 2022. The Department for Transport revealed the plans today, which will affect the 640,000 journeys made on regional trains each day. It comes as the bidding for the next company to run the area's rail services was launched. Operator South Eastern has run the network since 2006, but will now need to compete with 3 other transport companies. The 4 providers trying to win the contract are South Eastern Holdings, London and South East Passenger Rail Services, the Stagecoach Group and Italian national passenger operator Trenitalia. Rail Minister Paul Maynard said, "We are investing in the biggest railway modernisation for over a century. Today marks a major step forward in giving passengers better journeys across the South East and beyond. We've listened carefully to passengers and have introduced innovative new plans that see smoother, more comfortable journeys for passengers, with new longer trains and more space." But what are the plans? Well, firstly, the next chosen operator will need to remove first-class cabins from the trains over its first 18 months in charge to increase space on the trains. It will also have to bring in an improved compensation scheme, which will provide a refund after 15 minutes. It will introduce smart ticketing systems, including a pilot pay-as-you-go scheme, and improving customer service is also on the list. The final requirement is to improve cooperation with Network Rail, to increase the reliability of the trains and to put passengers first. Under the new plans, the area will be first in the country, where a single director is responsible for a joint team which operates the trains each day and is accountable for the network's performance. The company which will run the services will be announced in August next year, before starting in December.
A leading politician has told businesses in Medway that they're the backbone of the economy. The Shadow Labour Minister for Innovation and Skills, Bill Esterton, was in the county to talk about Brexit. Louisa Britton was there.
These office spaces bring together a variety of local businesses here in Medway since it opened in the summer. Dragon Co-working hosts individual small businesses in an innovative space where they can network and collaborate. Today, former Medway councillor and now Labour's Shadow Minister for Innovation and Skills visited the premises to support what he called the heart of our economy.
It's Small Business Saturday this weekend, and I want to support small firms across the country, and particularly in this area where I grew up. But they are the backbone of our economy, and if we're going to be successful in the future, we've got to support them. We've got to make sure that the smallest firms can be successful, that they have the broadband, that they have the road and rail infrastructure they need, that they've got the skilled young people coming through our education system so that they can be successable.
In the UK, there are 5 million businesses that employ fewer than 10 people.
They're absolutely crucial to this country to get us moving forward, to get the economy moving and push forward as well. It's the small businesses that really drive us. It's not these large companies, it's the small ones. It's these little people working today on their bedroom desk, in the kitchen.
But with Brexit planned for early 2019, many of these small businesses have concerns and anxieties about the future of the UK's economy and how their enterprises could fit into it.
Focusing completely on skills, I think I work in an area where the skills are lacking here, and those skills have been, the need for those skills has been filled by people who come in from other countries, who can easily come in from Europe. I think if those skills start to disappear, then we are going to have a worse skills problem than we have already.
I'm just really worried. With a focus so much on Brexit, people need to take their eye off what's really important, and what's really important is to get these small businesses, to help them, to push them forward, to get them set up and starting, because these are the guys that are going to be paying the taxes in the future. So whatever happens with Brexit, we've still got to keep our eye on the ball with these smaller companies.
Although these businesses may have uncertainties about the next few years, research published early this month does show resilience in the SME sector, with 1/3 of companies identifying themselves as in a growth phase. This is Louisa Britton for KMTV in Chatham.
Meanwhile, the UK's offered a larger potential divorce bill to the EU, which could be worth up to £44 billion. There's been no final agreement on a set figure yet, and the government has downplayed reports that the final sum could reach, get this, £49 billion. But how do you feel about potentially paying all that cash for the Brexit divorce bill? We are shoppers in Maidstone.
If it has to be paid, it has to be paid. Let's get on with it. But basically, I think it's all a waste of money and we should have just stayed in.
I'm not happy about it at all. I really don't think we've had value for money in the first place, and it just seems yet one more expense that we really shouldn't have.
I think it's brilliant. It's bad in the short term, but it's a minor figure for what we're saving and what we could potentially save further down the line.
I think it's ridiculous. We can spend £44 billion on other stuff like the NHS, like especially for our department. We're both partially deaf, and we're risking our department in the adult sector to be private.
Well, I think it's absolutely disgusting. Why should we have to buy ourselves out of something that we should never have been in the first place? Because at the end of the day, this is our country. Why have we got to keep paying for other countries? We shouldn't have to.
I would think that we need to just buy them off to get some trade deals.
Well, I didn't vote to leave, so you can probably imagine my thoughts. We should have stayed in. We should have changed. You can't make any changes to anything that you're not part of.
Shoppers in Maidstone there. But what about you? Do you think paying £44 billion for the Brexit divorce bill's fair? Join the debate using the hashtag #KentSays. Now, coming up after the break, we'll be speaking to a couple about the rise in transgender hate crime recorded in Kent. Don't go away. Welcome back to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV. Now, the numbers of sex crimes committed by adults in a position of trust in Kent and Medway has gone up. That's according to new figures released today by the NSPCC, which shows the number of offences committed in the area has increased. In total, nearly 60 incidents of this kind were recorded in the county. Here's Ben Sundell from the NSPCC.
There's been an 82% rise in recorded sex offences from adults who are abusing a position of trust. So this, at the moment, covers certain roles such as teachers and nurses and other sorts of care settings. But the NSPCC is really concerned that, in reality, these figures could be much higher because, at the moment, it doesn't extend to include positions such as sports coaches and youth leaders and religious leaders. And the NSPCC is calling on the government to act quickly and close this loophole in the law.
Now, according to police, hate crimes against transgender people have trebled in the last 5 years in Kent. Earlier this year in the county, a couple who were once married as man and woman renewed their vows as a same-sex couple in front of international media. I'm pleased to say I'm joined now by Christiana Taylor and her wife Denise to talk about the problems they faced in her transition. Well, first of all, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for asking us.
What do you make of those figures? Hate crimes have trebled against people in the trans community. What do you make of that?
I'm appalled, actually. And I'm appalled because it's not a surprise, let's be honest, and I think I'm not surprised because of the positive feedback and the exposure we've had as transgender people. We've had lots of celebrities, Caitlyn Jenner, we've had Kelly Maloney, and because of that, I think also because we're out there in the media, I think as a byproduct of that, we're going to attract a lot of this negative exposure as well. I've had that myself, so you know, I'm not surprised in a way, and I am upset about it actually.
And what about since your wedding? It did get a lot of exposure. What's it been like since then? Did you get much negative feedback from there?
From the actual day that everything went into the media, the following sort of day, sort of reading, you know, highlights of comments from people online, and you know, especially with some of the more national newspapers, there were quite upsetting comments, appalling comments, to think that people could actually make comments when they don't actually know, you know, the person that they're actually making these comments about. But I think, you know, it's a lack of education, you know, and I think it's more just because some of these people want reactions and they like people for them to be the centre of attention. And I think, you know, them getting these reactions from everybody else jumping on and sort of commenting, you know, gives them a sense of satisfaction. You know, but the comments were very, very upsetting and, you know, appalling to think that these people could actually make these comments about people that they don't even know.
And Christina, you're saying that you know, it is the community's much more in the public eye now.
Indeed.
Do you think that could be part of it, that more cases actually being reported because maybe people are too scared to come forward in the past?
Well, yes, indeed. And the thing is, if I could just add to Denise's point as well, one thing I will say, two of the national papers who did stories, actually they were very tasteful and they were accurate, and the words they wrote actually were very good. One of the headlines, I think it was The Sun, did make me smile, which I thought was really quite nice. But the Daily Mail, again, they were actually very complimentary, and I was quite pleased, actually. I was actually quite pleased on what they actually wrote.
And what about this term, the hate crime? Do you think some of the negativity that you've had, would you describe it as hate, or would you describe it as maybe ignorance, or how would you describe it?
I would describe it as ignorance. I think in its really extreme form, it's hate. Yes, but I think when you categorise hate, how do you categorise that? Do you categorise it with violence, or calling someone names, or laughing at someone? For me, I would probably say more ignorance than hate. I think hate's a strong word, an extremely strong word. I think in some cases, yes, there is hate, but I think, you know, ignorance does breed hate and turn into hate eventually. So it's a very broad term, hate, and I think it's maybe an incorrect term in this case.
And what about living in the county? Do you feel comfortable here? Do you feel at home and happy and accepted?
Undoubtedly.
Definitely.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
Definitely.
I mean, you know, this has been one of the biggest things we've ever done.
Definitely,
of course.
definitely.
And if you were to ask me today, do we regret one single thing that we've done about it? No. It's been a wonderful journey, and again today we've been asked to come here and the journey's continuing. And we're just happy to be here, to have that opportunity to say, look, you know, we're just normal people, you know.
We just come and go to
we're
work.
Just a normal
we
family.
Go shopping.
Yeah, we enjoy life.
You know, things with Stephen. You know, we just do all the normal things normal families do.
Yeah, and as a byproduct of this, and as a byproduct of our experience as a family, we're now trying to help educate and inform people. You know, we're not trying to force feed people. There's no hidden agenda. Transgender people have been accused of taking over, that we're taking over, and everybody has to be politically correct and careful what they say to the transgendered person. Not a case of that at all. You know, we just want to be treated as we are. You know, if
treated as equals.
Yeah, if someone is presenting as a woman, if someone is presenting as a man, then just carry on as normal. You don't have to overthink it. Just, you know, and if you're ever unsure, ask, how do you wish to be addressed? Easy.
Well, thanks very much, Dee, for coming in. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for having us.
Before that, though, Dartford hotshot Alfie Pavey has been speaking exclusively to KMTV about his impressive start to the season. Joe Koshan sat down with him to chat about his fall from the Football League, misery at Millwall and his great form in front of goal. Joe began by asking him about last week's 3-3 draw with Wealdstone, where Pavey scored twice, but the Darts dropped 2 points.
Frustrating one, you know, because I felt like a loss after going 3-2 up. You know, we thought we had it in the bag, but that weren't the case. But on a personal note, you know, another 2 goals for myself.
15 goals this season, 11 in the league. What's responsible for your fine form?
Just more focused, you know, coming out of professional football as such, and having to drop back down again. You know, you've got to be level-headed, and I want to get back to where I was. I used to go out and stuff like that. Like, no more. I don't do that. So yeah, I'm just focused on myself really, and I know where I want to be now. And having that sort of kick by getting released, I think has helped. I'm here now, fully focused on Dartford and on myself. So, 1, I want to be top goal scorer. 2, I want to be playing. And 3, I want to get promoted.
What sort of goal tally are you setting yourself? Were you not putting a number on it? Are you just?
I said I wanted 10 before Christmas.
Smash that.
So, my new target is 20 before Christmas. If I reach that, then I'm going to have to start thinking 40s, 50s.
What are your targets for your career then? What are you looking for?
I want to get back in the Football League. 100% want to get back in the Football League, you know, that's my aim, but I know I've got to do it here first to do that. I'm 22 years old and I'm still young. So yeah, that is my aim, but like I said, I've got to do it here first.
Driving, stolen, wavy, ocean, hate me, chosen.
In cricket, Champions Trophy holders Pakistan will travel to the Spitfire ground for a tour match against Kent at the end of April. It could see leg spinner Yasir Shah return to Canterbury for the first time since he played 3 championship matches for the Spitfires last season. It'll be the 11th time Kent have faced Pakistan in a first-class fixture, with the tourists triumphant in 3 of their previous visits. Some of the other Pakistan stars that could play include wicketkeeper batsman and captain Sarfraz Ahmed, as well as left-arm quicks Mohammad Amir and Wahab Riaz. I'll have more sport news for you later on in the programme. We'll be taking a look at Kent's fixtures for next season. See you in a bit.
Don't forget that you can keep up to date on all things going on in Kent by visiting our website kmtv.co.uk. You can check out some of our latest stories from across the county, like this video about a drama group which has won a prestigious award.
A Kent volunteer group has won a prestigious award. Square Pegs runs sessions across the county teaching drama and music. But it's a little bit different. In just a few moments, this hall will be filled with young people. Now, these young people have come from all different backgrounds and all have the same feeling that they don't fit in a normal place. Today, it receives the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service, the highest accolade a group can receive. It's the only group in Kent to get the award this year and is marking the occasion with a ceremony tonight and a visit from the Lord Lieutenant. Square Pegs was started 12 years ago and has since grown, with many children and young adults with learning difficulties and disabilities learning to sing and act under the watchful eye of a dedicated team.
We work with children and young people who have autism and learning disabilities, or just who struggle to fit in with mainstream activities. We run various weekly drama groups, singing group, film club, various other arts activities that are all aimed at young people who struggle to fit in. I think we're the only organisation in Kent this year who's won it, so it's a really amazing recognition of the work that we do.
They've done lots in the past, with performances such as This Is Me, a film exploring personalities in a bid to break stereotypes of disabilities, as well as releasing their own Christmas single a few years ago.
It's kind of like my next family, I would say, and it makes me feel like a legend.
Everyone gave me a warm welcome, and Square Pegs is like my second family, so I enjoy coming here so much, and acting's been my #1 true hobby.
Sophie is one of the volunteers who said that helping out at the sessions is really rewarding.
It's a really nice break as well, like to come and see what they do every week, be part of that. It's really, really good fun, so it's definitely very rewarding.
It's clear to see that the young people really enjoy attending Square Pegs.
I love Square Peg, about acting club. I'm famous. Bye.
This is Poppy Jeffrey for KMTV in Maidstone.
See you after the break. Hello and welcome to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV. I'm Andy Richards. Your top stories on Wednesday, the 29th of November. Claims of new evidence in historic Kent murder case. Michael Stone's lawyers say he could have been falsely imprisoned for 2 decades.
Every day I wake up, the first thing I think about is him waking up in the morning, that he's in prison, he's in a cell, and I'm walking around.
The backbone of the economy. Labour Shadow Minister visits Medway's small businesses.
I want to support small firms across the country, and particularly in this area where I grew up.
Sinking statistics. We're in West Kent, where a new study shows 1 in 3 leave primary schools unable to swim.
All children should currently, and for the last 20 years, have had the opportunity to be able to attend swimming classes through schools.
And in sport, find out how Kent Cricket Club begin the 2018 season as I take a look at their fixtures.
It's been almost 2 decades since Michael Stone was sent to prison for the murders of Lynn and Megan Russell in Chillenden. But fresh evidence presented by his lawyers today suggests serial killer Levi Belfield has confessed to the crime. Stone was given 3 life sentences back in 2001, despite always maintaining his innocence. And today's announcement casts doubt on his conviction. Harry Peet was in London for the announcement earlier today.
Gillingham's Michael Stone has been in prison for more than 20 years after being found guilty of murdering Lynn and Megan Russell in 1996. But today, here in London, his legal team say they have found evidence which they say proves his innocence.
We have now received evidence of a full confession by Levi Belfield. He has admitted the Russell murders. In the confession, Belfield describes how he came across Lynn Russell and her 2 children, how he attacked them with a hammer, and he explains his motivation for the killing.
Whilst details of the evidence weren't revealed, barrister Mark MacDonald was certain that the new evidence would show that Levi Belfield was the killer.
What we have here is a confession which has material in it which is not in the public domain, and more importantly is corroborated by other evidence. The independent witness, as we've said, and in relation to the forensic material which corroborates what is said by Levi Belfield.
A third of children from Kent will leave primary school unable to swim. That's according to findings from the Amateur Swimming Association. Cameron Tucker's been getting reactions to the study from across the county.
Go! Reach! Long up! Every week here in Tunbridge Wells and across Kent, hundreds of young children splish and splash at swimming classes. Despite the popularity of these classes, a study by the Amateur Swimming Association shows primary school swimming has taken a dive. 1 in 3 primary school leavers are unable to swim, up from the previously reported figure of 1 in 5. That means around 200,000 UK children left primary this summer without achieving the national curriculum target of swimming 25 metres unaided by the age of 11.
Since 1994, swimming provision at primary schools has been in the national curriculum. So it's a figure that shouldn't be the case because all children should currently, and for the last 20 years, have had the opportunity to be able to attend swimming classes through schools. And I think that's the biggest concern, the fact that that hasn't been happening.
A lack of funding, cost of training teachers, transport between schools and pools, and a focus on science and maths as opposed to swimming. Just some of the reasons why school swimming appears to be sinking.
There is a shortage of pool space and pool availability. So that in itself will lead to pressure on pool time, which will drive the prices of hiring pools up. Those costs inevitably will get passed on onto both customers and schools.
Kent County Council have said, barring academies, swimming should be more central to the school curriculum, but there's a limit to what local authorities can do.
We've certainly always sought to support schools in what they do on swimming, so we have a policy that's designed to assist schools in how they address some of them. Health and safety issues, the use of another pool, a range of sort of practical issues that gives them support in that. We always seek still to provide a conference and indeed some training for PE coordinators. And we do notice whenever that happens that swimming comes up as a big issue.
The main point is it already is part of the school curriculum. The big issue is that the curriculum is not being upheld. It's not just that children aren't attending classes, because I think over 70% of school children are attending swimming classes. The issues is the quality of what's actually being delivered as well.
The lack of provision has also raised alarms over safety. about 300 to 400 drown every year. More children without basic swimming skills could have a troubling impact on these figures. Cameron Tucker for KMTV.
To talk about this in a bit more depth, I'm joined by Teachers Union representative Warren Chambers from Thanet and our reporter Cameron Tucker, who's been working on the story. So first of all, Warren, thanks very much for joining us. What have you made of those figures? 1 in 3 children unable to swim.
I'm not surprised by the figures because of the budgetary requirements and constraints on schools. That swimming is a low priority for schools. It's not something that a teacher is going to be judged on whether their children can swim or not. It's about their English and maths, and so to go for a swimming lesson takes a lot of time, a lot of disruption to the day. The children get very excited, and in my experience, it's a low priority for teachers.
And what about you, Cameron? I know you've done a fair bit of work on this. You've really looked at throughout the county. What have you found about it in terms of the curriculum?
Yeah, well, you know, as we've got Warren here who's from Thanet, I've talked to some teachers from Gravesend, throughout West Kent as well, and also swimming coaches. And I think that there's a realisation that it is important to swim, you know, it is a life-saving skill. But in terms of the curriculum, as Warren said, it is, you know, fairly down on the priorities in terms of you've got STEM subjects that are up there, you know, and having to herd 30 kids with a class, the logistical difficulties of that, I'm sure Warren will go into more depth on.
Mm-hmm. And you know, I've tried to find my kids some swimming lessons in Kent and really had to search hard. But should it be down to the parents to look for the lessons?
Yes, in one sense it is, because it is a life skill, and with, you know, within the 6-hour teaching day, you know, we've got all these other skills that we need to teach them. And for a school, the priority is Ofsted and what they will come and look at, and they will come and look at, you know, how you're doing for your maths, your English and your reading. And budgets are being cut. You know, just recently we had the budget announced and not enough money being put into education. And so as a union we're asking for more. And so those, when you squeeze, things get dropped off. And swimming in itself doesn't just cost the swimming lesson, it's the logistics of transport, depending on whether you have a pool near you. And then you've got to get there, you've got to get changed, then it's a 20-minute lesson. If you've got 30 children, that not all teachers are trained as swim instructors, so there's the extra cost, and then you've got to get back. That disruption for that day, it takes a lot of learning away from the curriculum, and so it's not given the priority it should. I work in Thanet, which is, you know, we're surrounded by sea, so we understand the importance, and it is a life-saving skill. But unfortunately, the budgets don't necessarily come across for that.
Warren, Cameron, thank you very much indeed. Thanks. Now, an impressive piece of Doctor Who memorabilia went under the hammer today at Canterbury Auction Galleries. The 9-foot-tall TARDIS, signed by past Doctors and cast members, was up for sale to raise money for children in need. I'm happy to say it made a total of £3,200. The buyer's not yet been named, but let's not hope it hasn't fallen into the hands of the Daleks. It's staying cold tonight, with temperatures looking set to drop to 2 degrees near Tunbridge Wells, but it's getting even colder tomorrow with lows of 0, meaning it's a very chilly start to the day indeed. Moving into the afternoon, it's going to be overcast with a slight breeze. Looking ahead to the weekend, and it's going to be staying dry and relatively warmer. Now back to the earlier news that the UK has offered a larger potential divorce bill to the EU, which could be worth up to £44 billion. There's been no final agreement on a set figure yet, and Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson has said the UK would make a fair offer to help break the current deadlock. But with everything that's been going on since the Brexit vote, how do you feel about leaving the EU now? We asked shoppers in Maidstone.
I still would rather stay in. One of the things that concerns me most is environmental issues.
There's been a lot of scaremongering, and I think the main people that are concerned seem to be the people trading money. I certainly know in my industry, my line of work will still continue whether we're in Europe or out of it.
Well, I don't think that we should leave. I think we live in very dangerous times, and I think, you know, united we will all stand together against all the other things that are going on in the world. I think to start splitting up, when we've been with the EU for 40 years, I mean, we're a country that's got people from all parts of the world, and I just think it's very divisive.
I wanted to come out of Brexit, never wanted to go in it anyway, and I blame Edward Heath for this because he was the one who started all about going into Europe. I'm not European, I'm British, and I'm proud to be British, and I don't want to be Europe. Thank you very much.
All the mucking around, particularly with our own politicians, you know, all the business with having not accepting the fact that the majority of people wanted to leave, and it just seems a lot of twisting about.
Shoppers in Maidstone there. But what about you? How do you feel about leaving the EU now? Let us know using the hashtag Kent Says. Coming up after the break, we'll have a look forward to our business show Chris & Co coming up at 6:30. Plus Keelan will be here with the sport. Don't go away. Hello and welcome back to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV on Wednesday the 29th of November. In case you missed it, Kent murder case shock. Michael Stone's lawyers say he could have been falsely imprisoned for 20 years.
You know, it's something that never goes away, and it affects everything I do in life, really.
We need our small businesses. Labour Shadow Minister visits Medway.
They are the backbone of our economy, and if we're going to be successful in the future, we've got to support them. We've got to make sure that the smallest firms can be successful.
Kent's swimming scenario. Study shows 1 in 3 who leave primary schools are unable to swim.
The issues are that is the quality of what's actually being delivered as well.
And in sport, Dartford top scorer Alfie Pavey chats exclusively to KMTV about his impressive goal-scoring form.
Time now for your pick of the papers with a look at what's making the news in print, online and radio across Kent. Earlier today, I spoke to KMTV's Duarte Diaz, who started off by telling me about a national award given for 2 staff members at a Dartford hospital.
So our first story is about 2 nurses at the Darren Valley Hospital who won the National Times Nursing Award, or rather the Nursing Times National Award, for their advice video on a big issue, which is childhood constipation. They're known as poo nurses, funnily enough, but their names are Sandra Hansen and Helen Ripper, and they run the childhood constipation service at that the hospital. And the reason why they won is because they wrote and designed this video to help GPs, parents, carers, anyone who might need that advice on how to how to help their child in care who might be having some issues with constipation, which is actually a big issue, more than some people might think if they're not parents.
Absolutely. When you're a parent, you absolutely know that it is an issue. Exactly. It sounds like a really fantastic initiative.
Exactly. So that they said that they're really proud of the work that they've done and that they're helping people that way, because they say that the problem with children is that once they do a poo, which might be a bit painful, they won't want to poo again because they associate with a bad experience. So they have to work with that and really find a way to solve that problem.
And your second story, Duarte?
Our second story is that the fact that it's been discovered that the entry point for Romans into the UK was actually here in Kent. More specifically, this was about 2,000 years ago. Romans and Julius Caesar arrived in Pegwell Bay in Thanet. And so far, well, until now, this wasn't known and it wasn't really thought about because Thanet wasn't a part of the mainland back then. But this was actually where they constructed a fort to sort of have an overview point of Britain and plan their invasion. So it's quite interesting, Kent link to Julius Caesar.
And you seem very excited about it.
I am very excited about that. I'm a bit of a history nerd because, they found iron weaponry, javelin, other artefacts where they dug up, which obviously they sort of proved that this was exactly where they entered the UK and went on to cross the Thames eventually. They fought 2 battles in Canterbury. This is during one of the invasions. for Britain. So yeah, it's a very, very interesting story there.
And your third story, Dwight?
Our third story is about the 2-week gun amnesty that Kent Police ran. It finished Sunday just gone, and they said that more than 300 guns and ammunition were handed over to Kent Police. In fact, there's about 10,000 live and blank ammunition which was handed over. Of that, 61 air rifles, 46 pistols, 49 revolvers, 73 shotguns, 32 rifles, 2 submachine guns, 4 assault rifles, 5 gas guns, among a few others. So quite a lot of weapons, and police are very pleased because they say, you know, this is an opportunity for people who maybe don't know what they have on their hands, or maybe they want to give up on a weapon that they obtained through some other means, to give them in and know that they're not going to have any you know, legal repercussions from it. So they're really pleased with that.
That's incredible.
Yep.
But what the police have said, though, is that many of the people didn't even realise that it was illegal to have them.
Exactly. So some people might have them as heirlooms. Some people might have not looked in the attic in a while, for example. So they say it's been really successful. I mean, last year, a similar one saw 104 weapons being turned in. So 300 or more than 300 is quite a good number.
Dwight, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
A reminder, you can stay up to date with all the news, sport and weather from right across Kent, whenever and wherever you are, by clicking on kmtv.co.uk. You'll find breaking news, local features, repeats of our special programmes, plus the latest travel news. With a look at Kent Cricket Club's fixtures for next season, here's Keelan with the sport. So, Keelan, it feels like 5 minutes ago when the season ended. So how is it looking for the fixtures?
Yeah, 2018, it's the 13th of April when we're going to see Kent begin their campaign, when they'll be looking for promotion. They were hoping to get promoted from Division 2 in the County Championship last campaign. And they start at a home tie. They've been away the last couple of seasons, but they host Gloucestershire at the Spitfire ground for their first contest. And one of the standout fixtures is the game at home to Middlesex on the 25th of June, because that is when Canterbury will host their first day-night match with the Pink Ball. And Middlesex, having won the Division 1 title only 2 seasons ago, relegated last season, they're back into Division 2, as are Warwickshire, who Kent played just before that on the 20th. So that's very interesting. And in the 2020 competition, the T20 Blast, Kent have start with 3 successive away games. They take on Surrey, Somerset and Gloucestershire, and as you can see here, they have a plethora of home games as well. 2 of those, interestingly, will be held at Beckenham, the games against Hampshire and Middlesex, and it was in those games where they performed particularly well last season, even though they just missed out on the quarter-finals. And the One Day Cup is another competition they'll be hoping to do a lot better in this season, because they finished bottom of the group. They only won 1 game last campaign. That was against Middlesex. They go away to Lords on the 20th of May, and they'll be hoping to return to Lords for the final on the 30th. Some of the standout games: Glamorgan on the 25th of May, Darren Stevens with an excellent 100 against them last season, and Alex Blake as well hit a superb century at Taunton against Somerset last season, but this time they're facing them at home. In football, Gillingham boss Steve Lovell has denied Liam Nash the chance to play for Leatherhead in the FA Cup this weekend. The striker is on loan at the Bostik Premier outfit, who take on League 2 Wickham in the second round, but Lovell is preventing Nash from playing to ensure he's not cup-tied should Gillingham progress into the third round. The Gills host Carlisle at Priestfield on Saturday, hoping to make it into round 3 for the first time since 2012. Johan ter Horst marked his Folkestone Invicta debut with 2 goals for them in the Bostik Premier Division last night. The double helped Invicta to a comprehensive 5-1 triumph over Enfield Town, meaning they're now 3rd in the table with 7 wins from 8 games. In the Bostik South last night, a Gerson dos Santos penalty gave Clive Cook's Hythe side a 2-1 win over VCD Athletic. Thamesmead were left frustrated following an entertaining 3-3 draw at struggling Molesey, whilst Herne Bay drew 1 apiece with Horsham. You're up to date on sport for today. I'll have more for you during tomorrow's edition of Kent Tonight.
Tonight's set to be clear and dry with highs of 4 degrees near the coast, but it's getting even colder tomorrow with temperatures set to hit freezing near Tunbridge Wells towards the afternoon, and it's looking cloudy but dry. Into the rest of the week, and Friday we'll have sunny spells before the overcast weekend, which will be warmer than we've had so far this week. Coming up after the break is our business show, Chris and Co. I'll be speaking to Chris Price about what to expect in this latest episode in a minute. But first, here's Cameron Tucker with a roundup of what's making the headlines for businesses in the county.
Workers' Union Unite has criticised bosses of a historic printing firm which closed suddenly last week, saying staff are still unaware if they'll be getting paid. Administrators are poised to be appointed at Stones Ashford, formed after the takeover of Headley Brothers, one of Kent's oldest printing companies. The troubled firm was sold to Oxfordshire print business Henry Stones hours after tumbling into administration in March, in a deal which rescued 113 jobs. In a shock move, the Ashford business closed less than 2 weeks ago. Winemaker Hush Heath Estates is increasing its activity in the pub market after signing a deal with the UK's largest bar company. The winery, which has vineyards near Staplehurst, is launching Hush Heath Inns in a joint venture with EI Managed Investments, which owns more than 4,500 properties, for the large part run as leased and tenanted boozers. Its first site will be the Ship Inn in Rye, East Sussex, adding to 4 pubs it already owns, 3 linked with boutique hotels. And a Kent schoolboy celebrated the first anniversary of setting up his own business. Lewis Ing is not yet old enough to open his own bank account or learn to drive, but the 14-year-old has proudly celebrated a year at the helm of the Bubble Waffle Company. Lewis, who is the youngest registered entrepreneur at the Kent Foundation, decided to open his street food business after being inspired by traders he met while holidaying with his family in Hong Kong and Vietnam. He's catered for 19 events, the most successful being West Farleigh Fireworks Night this month.
Well, Chris joins me now to talk about today's show. What another busy day of business news.
It has been, and it's been, to be honest, an incredibly busy week of business news. So we kicked off with the launch of the government's industrial strategy, which we're going to talk a bit about with my guests, who are Wayne Wright, business advisor, and Jerry Biggs, who's the head of a tech investment firm. That industrial strategy is looking at tech investment, and so we'll be talking a bit about that. We also had a visit today, as you've seen this tonight on Kent Tonight, from Bill Esterson, who's the Labour Shadow Business Minister, and we'll be talking about some of the things he talked about and some of the concerns for small businesses, particularly about the future of the economy, access to skills, getting better broadband, and how we can actually fix those things, and perhaps whether or not a Labour government's the right way of doing that. Many people might say today's government perhaps isn't shaping up too well either, so we'll see what comes out there. And also we'll be talking about farmers, who are concerned about access to foreign labour and the impact that that's actually now starting to practically have for many farmers. One that we feature in the programme tonight, saying they've lost £250,000 because of being unable to get hold of the foreign workers to pick the fruit.
Chris, thanks very much indeed. So that's Chris and Co. coming up after the break. But for now, you've been watching Kent Tonight live on KMTV, and it's goodbye from me. Goodbye.